Okay, abnormal psychology students, we're on to chapter 6, somatic dissociative disorders. I've mentioned in the past how the body is tied to any kind of disorder that we have. It's hard to separate the mind and body. And soma is a derivative of somatic. Soma means body, right? The body's affected so many different ways. The mind can manifest so many different disorders. It's amazing that we're as healthy as we are most of the time. I can understand my mother and my first grade teacher, but there's also a TV announcer who sells dog food commercials, who does dog food commercials, and a second screen catcher for Detroit Tigers. So here's a client talking to his therapist, and of course we know that his disorder probably is dissociative identity disorder. The old name was multiple personality disorder, so if you hear people still referring to them, then you can show them that you got an education and tell them, actually, that's DID, dissociative identity disorder. So anything that affects the body is a somatic disorder. And we know that it's manifested in a variety of different ways. Sometimes the situations we're in produces stress and produces the body to react to the stress. You can simply ask yourself the question, when your things are not going right, where do you feel it on your body? And some of you might say, oh, I get this horrible headache. And we've talked about those before, like cluster headaches. Or my stomach starts to get all weird. Or this one eye starts to twitch, right? Or this particular tooth starts hurting, right? So that it can manifest in so many different ways. And some doctors believe that 90+% of all disorders are related to things that are going on in our mind. But here's some possible disorders, and one of them is related to the case study I'm going to start off with. That's conversion disorder. In Sigmund Freud's time, he would encounter disorders in which people would manifest all kinds of weird phenomena. For example, they would have paralysis of the hands, they would lose their vision, they would lose their capacity to even walk anymore, right? Yesterday they're walking fine, now they're paralyzed, they can't feel anything in their sensation in their legs. And of course, in Freud's time, he didn't have the technology we have today to do all kinds of MRIs or CAT scans or X-rays. I mean, just to find out what's going on with the person, to eliminate the possibility that it might be a physical cause. We've since learned that psychological trauma can cause a lot of the same physical phenomena. And that leads me to the case study of what I like to call as Jim, the super therapist. Now, when I was a young man, just entering in the field of psychology, I was fortunate to work at a place called La Casa. Now, for our multilingual friends, La Casa translates to the house. Very good. Thank you, Dora. It actually was an acronym. The acronym, I'll show you here at the top of this picture here, stood for the Latin American Community Against Substance Abuse, La Casa. In Detroit, Michigan, the southwest part of Detroit, I had the opportunity to learn how to be a clinician. Now, all I had was a high school diploma. I didn't have much experience with substances, so I really didn't know what I was doing. I was afraid that my work in doing therapy with these individuals would actually produce more substance abusers than reduce. Fortunately, I met Jim, the super therapist. Here's an image of Jim. There's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I put some fake glasses on Jim so that we can protect his identity in some form or fashion. And let me tell you, Jim was, to me, he looked like a college professor, which I would later become. He looked very clean cut, always nicely dressed, but he knew substance abuse counseling. Why? Because he was a recovering heroin addict. As a matter of fact, he knew so much and he taught me so much. He really mentored me. He taught me how to tell how people were lying, right? Because he used to go into those agencies and lie the same way. As a matter of fact, a lot of people that came into La Casa, he used to do drugs with. So he knew all the tricks of the trade. And I was very appreciative because anytime you start a new job, you need some guidance, right? It's hard to just be thrown in without somebody showing you, this is how you do it. Now you do it your way, right? So here we are just pretending like we're doing a therapy session in a pose shot at his office, right? That's why I can't keep a straight face. Okay. Well, one day, Jim, the super therapist, came to work and his hand was bandaged. I believe it was his right hand. Here's an image of his hand bandaged. And we're doing another pose shot at my office, right? But it was kind of posed, but it wasn't really posed in some form or fashion. And I'll tell you why. He comes in and he can't move his hand. Excuse me. It's paralyzed. What happened? Did you sleep on it wrong? Did you hit something? Did you injure it? I don't know. Have you gone to the doctor? Yeah, they're doing all kinds of x-rays and stuff and just find out what's good, but they can't figure out what's going on. Wow, what a mystery. Strange. Well, he asked me for a favor. He says, look, when we do therapy sessions, we have to keep a lot of paperwork. Now it's all done on the computer, but back in the day, we used to write notes and treatment plans, and there were just a lot of forms for each case. He says, I can't do that now because my right hand's paralyzed and it's all bandaged up. So he says, if it's okay with you, I know it's extra work, but is it okay with my client's permission if I record their sessions and you could write down the notes for me? And I figured, you know what? He's helped me, right back at you. Let me do that for you. So I did. I listened to his therapy sessions, write his notes for him to help him keep up with the paperwork. Right about that time, I was getting ready to leave La Casa. Why? Because I saw the writing was on the wall. Having just a high school diploma and trying to make a career in the field of psychology, in this case, substance abuse treatment, very limiting. They said they could probably grandfather me in and keep my job, but I knew that education was a way to progress. So I left the agency of La Casa and started going to school. I took one class at a community college. I was successful. So I said, I'm going to head over to the university. So I attended Eastern Michigan University, eventually getting my BS and my master's in clinical psychology. When I first started school, I'll never forget it. It was about the second or third week of school. I received a phone call late at night, really late, and it was Jim, the super therapist. And he was talking a mile a minute. Hey, you got to help me. You got to help me. They're doing some kind of a urine test, and could you provide a sample? Or I was like, whoa, hold on. So you're talking way too fast. You want me to provide a sample for you, like a urine test, something? And he's like, nah, never mind. And he hangs up. I thought that was a weird conversation. I wonder what that was all about. Well, you know how the grapevine works. Within a few days, I heard through the grapevine, even though it was long distance, I heard that Jim, the super therapist, was fired. He was fired because he relapsed and started using heroin again. And it must have produced so much stress in his life, right? Here I am, a substance abuse counselor, telling people not to use drugs, and then by night, I'm using drugs. He claimed to people that he was fired because he couldn't keep up with his paperwork. But other people said, no, that wasn't the real reason. He's in denial. He relapsed, which is so unfortunate because it happens. People relapse, whether we say no more potato chips and then we grab a few. It's a relapse, right? Now, obviously, it's serious, but he could have gotten some help and maybe kept his position. That didn't happen. Fast forward almost a year. I happened to be in downtown Detroit. I was a passenger in a car. It was wintertime. We happened to stop at a red light. It was kind of towards the evening. I looked out the window. It was a really cold day because I remember it was like snowing and things like that, windy. I look out the window and I saw this man standing next to one of those big metal trash containers. He had some fire going inside the trash containers to keep warm. And when I looked at the man, even though it was quite a distance, I saw his eyes. And I said, oh my gosh, that's Jim, the super therapist. Now he had a long beard. the long hair. He was wearing his army jacket. I knew he was a veteran. And he looked right at me. And I can see him mouth. The windows were up and the car took off. And I thought, how far the mighty have fallen. Here was my mentor, Jim, the super therapist, who showed me the ropes. Now he was reduced to perhaps a homeless individual, lost, and perhaps still immersed in drug abuse. Not sure. I look back on that case now and I feel sad because I realize that he might have suffered from what we think of as conversion disorder, right? This idea that the anxiety can produce a physical phenomenon. And I think the anxiety of him using substances, but at the same time feeling like a hypocrite and telling not other people not to use substances was so overwhelming to him that it paralyzed his hand, his writing hand. That ultimately sabotaged his job, right? Leading to a road of destruction. Now, I don't know what happened to him since that time, but I hope that he was able to get help and get back on track. I just know that I learned from him. I thank him for that. And I went on to have a career, 19 years as a clinician, and now as a professor. And I don't forget the people that helped me, even though that some of them got lost along the way. So that's a sad case study of Jim, the super therapist. We can have things like illness, anxiety disorder, where you're constantly at the doctor's office and they got a prescription waiting for you because they know you're going to come in and you haven't even made an appointment. That's how much you're sick all the time. And let's face it, all of us have a tia or an aunt or somebody we know. When we ask them how they're doing, they're always sick, right? And you might think, poor thing, what's going on? Some people just have poor health, poor immunities. Some people are just sick for other reasons, right? Some people seem to falsify their illness. Every time there's a big work assignment, oh, I'm sick, and they can't help out with that work assignment. And so we start to believe they're just faking it, right? Factitious disorder, just to get out of the responsibility of doing the work. Psychologically, we know that there's a lot of factors involved with this. Think about it. If we go back to the behavioral school reinforcement, as kids, some of us, when we got sick, we were treated differently. We were given special privileges. We got to stay home from school. We're given a special meal or beverage, maybe some toys. Now, I know some of you are saying, not me. I was smacked upside the head and said, you're getting your butt to school. And if you got, over 105, then we'll talk temperature. So how do we explain these things? Well, it's difficult. It depends on who you ask. Psychoanalytic or psychodynamic people would say, well, it goes back to our parenting, it goes back from our past, it's related to the unconscious. Cognitive behavioral people would say we were reinforced to be sick, just like when we have sick days, if we don't use them, we lose them for some of our jobs. So people wind up calling in sick, pretending to be sick. Or let's face it, if you keep on thinking, oh my God, I think I'm coming down with a cold or something, then you get sick. It's like, did you just will yourself to be sick, right? We know that trauma can produce a variety of illnesses, right? Either physical, psychological, sexual trauma can produce some long-term cases of illness. And of course, women are especially vulnerable to this. We're going to continue with the somatic and other related disorders next time. Thank you.